Here's a conundrum for you. Let's say that you have all the food you could possibly want and the ability to reproduce very frequently, or to have intercourse very frequently. Now, if you have those two things, according to evolution, you should actually be very happy, because essentially you have the ability to spread your genetics quite widely. As a result, there's more chance of you surviving, or your genetic material surviving, and therefore you should be selected for, and the happier you are, or the more this happens, the happier you should be, because you are essentially fulfilling your purpose, or not your purpose, but you are fulfilling what you've been selected to do, which is to reproduce. The conundrum is, if you look at many people who seem to have these two things, plenty of success so that they can buy all they want and fulfill their needs, potentially those who are famous, who are able to sleep with who they want or whomever they want. These people tend to often be on drugs and have depression problems. Not always, not necessarily most of the time, but a disproportionate amount of them have these sorts of problems. This seems remarkably strange, as these people have the greatest opportunity to spread their genetics and have all the food and resources they could want. In theory, they should be very happy, but they're not. And the same thing is borne out internationally as well. So on face value, this seems slightly strange. However, what if we look at things from a Christian point of view, or a religious point of view? Let's say that there is a God, and therefore it is designed in us to want to worship him, or at least to acknowledge his presence, and suppressing it is somehow unhealthy, or leads you to essentially try and buy into something which is false, like the belief that you have no purpose and you have no value, you're just something which is randomly selected due to your ability to procreate and survive. If we take that worldview, that there is a God and that we should have some form of relationship with him, does that then fit with the facts a lot more? If we make that our hypothesis, if there is a God, then it would make sense that those who are in a relationship with him, or those who have some understanding of him, tend to have a better satisfaction in life, perhaps, than those who don't. Not that their life is particularly easier than, it's not that they're more wealthy, or that they have more cars or other superfluous items, but just generally, if we look at the fact that they're in a relationship with God, does this have some form of impact on their life? Now, if we look at statistics in order to see if this correlation exists, if we look at suicide rates by country, and then look at the level of people who believe in God, is there a correlation? Perhaps unsurprisingly, or surprisingly, depending on which camp you're in, yes, there does seem to be a correlation. Those countries which have had their religion banned, or religion generally banned, such as Russia and some of the old Soviet bloc countries, have the highest suicide rates in the world. In contrast, those which have a very high level of religion tend to have very low levels of suicide. You can look all this up yourself, the statistics are widely available. Of course, statistics aren't a perfect measure. It's very difficult really to gauge in some ways whether someone really is religious as such, or how much of it is more of a tradition. I'm not saying the statistics are going to be perfect, but nonetheless there does seem to be a correlation between the fact that if you have a very low amount of people who follow God, or have a relationship with God, or believe in God in the country, you tend to have a very high suicide rate. Which is remarkably strange, considering that is exactly the result you would expect from a Christian point of view, but has are completely irrelevant, or should be completely irrelevant if you take an atheist point of view, because these factors should not really have any bearing on someone's happiness. It doesn't really make sense. If there is no God, why would it matter if one believes in one or doesn't? It just doesn't make sense. And yet the correlation does bear itself out. So that begs the question, why is it that if you take an atheist's point of view, what you would expect to happen doesn't, and the facts don't match the theory? And why is it that if you take a theist point of view, the facts do reflect what you'd expect? The hypothesis is fulfilled, it is correct. Now, how can that possibly be if there is no God? Thanks for listening.